Back at Envision Consulting, the shock of the BMW arson had snowballed into a crisis. The board of directors convened a closed-door meeting to discuss the potentially massive reputational damage. If the rumor that Lucas had been demanding sexual favors found traction in the media, the company's image could be severely tarnished. The board members recognized the seriousness: lawsuits, public condemnation, and possible meltdown of client trust. Board Member 1. We need to distance ourselves from this scandal if it's true. We cannot allow such behavior in upper management. Board Member 2. First, we need hard evidence. Right now it's all rumors. Board Member 3. But we can't ignore the rumors. They're all over social media, and no one sets a car on fire just for the fun of it. Lucas was ushered into the meeting, clearly stressed and uncharacteristically defensive. He denied all allegations of misconduct and insisted that the arson was unrelated to any rumored wrongdoing. However, the damage was done. Seeds of doubt had been planted in the board's minds. They decided to initiate an internal investigation, which would include collecting anonymous employee statements. If enough credible claims corroborated Lucas's wrongdoing, he would face immediate dismissal and potential legal action. With the company in free fall, employees' morale plummeted. Some felt terror at the prospect of losing their jobs. Others felt a grim satisfaction that Lucas might finally be exposed for his sleazy tactics. Evelyn secretly hoped Isabella could come forward and present her evidence, though she still had no confirmation that Isabella was behind the fire. 2 days after the arson, Isabella returned to the office in the late afternoon when fewer people were around. She looked drained, her face drawn and eyes sunken. Evelyn spotted her entering, heart pounding with relief and worry. She hurried over, not sure what to say, but the concern was evident on her face. Evelyn. Bella, thank God you're back. Are you feeling better? Isabella, her voice hollow. I don't know if I can ever feel better. Can we talk somewhere private? They found an unoccupied conference room. Isabella shut the door behind them and leaned against it, fighting tears. Evelyn, what's going on? Everyone's going crazy about Lucas's car. The rumors about him. It's a nightmare here. Isabella, voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn, I did it. I set his car on fire. Evelyn's eyes widened in shock. She looked at Isabella for several seconds, processing the confession. Evelyn, voice trembling. Oh, Bella, why? God, this is serious. Isabella, swallowing hard. I know. I just snapped. All those times he used me, lied to me, promised me a promotion. The humiliation. And then I found out I'm on the layoff list. I lost it. Evelyn let out a shaky breath. Evelyn, you could get in so much trouble if they find out it was you. Isabella, I know. Part of me feels guilty, but I can't pretend I regret that he's finally facing consequences. He's under investigation for harassment. Maybe now people will believe me. Evelyn, gripping Isabella's shoulders gently. Look, you need to be careful. If I were you, I consider getting legal advice. Also, you might want to come forward with your story of harassment in a way that shows why you were pushed to the edge. It won't justify arson, but it could highlight the real issue. Isabella's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded. She realized that if she kept silent, Lucas might slither out of the accusations, claiming innocence. Perhaps she had the power to stop him for good. Isabella, voice shaky. I still have some texts, a few emails where he hinted at what he wanted. But I'm terrified. If they link the fire to me, it's jail time, Evelyn. Evelyn, one step at a time. Right now, you need to gather your evidence and make a plan. The board's investigation is your chance to speak out, but be prepared for the consequences. They parted ways with heavy hearts. Evelyn promised to keep Isabella's secret, though she pressed Isabella to do the right thing and come forward. Isabella left the office feeling slightly less alone, but no less trapped. She recognized that by orchestrating an act of revenge, she had turned her life into an irreversible chain reaction. The next day, Isabella called in sick again, but she stayed near the phone, anticipating a call from HR or the board. Around noon, she finally received an email from the Internal Investigation Committee. To whom it may concern, We are conducting an internal investigation regarding allegations of sexual misconduct within the Strategy and Development Department. We invite any employees who have relevant information or experiences to share their statements in strict confidence. Please reach out to us at the earliest convenience. Isabella stared at the email, her heart pounding. This was her opportunity, but it also could expose her to legal repercussions if she mentioned the arson. She decided to be measured. She would first detail the harassment, focusing on Lucas's repeated demands. If the investigators pressed her about anything else, like the arson, she would deal with that when it came. She spent hours composing her statement, reading and rereading it. She described how her promotions had been constantly derailed despite her strong performance, how Lucas had pressured her into an unethical arrangement, and how she had ultimately discovered she was to be laid off anyway. She attached snippets of messages from her phone, suggestive texts from Lucas, references to meeting up, and vague promises like, "Be patient. I'll take care of you when the time is right." After finally sending the statement, she felt both dread and relief. She had pressed a button she couldn't unpress. Days passed, and the corporate rumor mill churned with ever more intensity. The board interviewed employees, collecting stories and reviewing evidence. Multiple women came forward, some anonymously, corroborating the allegations. The weight of these testimonials, combined with any digital evidence they provided, built a strong case against Lucas Brown. He was ordered to step away from his duties, pending the result of the investigation. When the final verdict arrived, it was a bombshell. Lucas was found culpable for harassment and abuse of power. The company relieved him of his position. Outside, the local press caught wind of the scandal and ran stories about the CEO's prize car being set ablaze in suspected retaliation for unethical workplace behavior. Headlines read, "Corporate scandal erupts. Alleged harassment leads to shocking act of arson." Though no official suspect was named in the arson case, the public latched onto the narrative of a mystery vigilante, someone within the company who had presumably snapped under pressure. Online commenters championed the unknown avenger, while others condemned the act as criminal and reckless. Either way, Lucas's fall from grace was swift and complete. For a short while, Isabella hoped she had escaped detection. She had provided enough evidence to damage Lucas's reputation and force the company to address the toxic work environment. Perhaps that alone could be her vindication. But it wasn't that simple. One evening, she received a summons to a meeting with the corporate board and the internal investigation unit. Anxiety coiled in her chest as she stepped into the building's top-floor conference room. A half-dozen stern-faced individuals sat around a long table, documents and laptops spread before them. A legal representative was also present, head of investigation, clearing his throat. "Ms. James, thank you for coming. We've reviewed your statement, and we take your allegations very seriously. The board has already taken action to remove Lucas Brown from his position based on multiple corroborating testimonies. However, the matter of the arson remains unresolved." Isabella's pulse roared in her ears. She tried to keep her expression neutral. "Isabella, yes, I've been following the situation. Head of investigation. The vehicle's destruction has now attracted police interest as it falls under criminal damage. We're aware this might be a separate investigation, but it directly impacts the company's reputation. We wanted to ask if you have any information about who might have done it." For a moment, she couldn't speak. She considered confessing outright, telling them she was pushed beyond her limits. But she was terrified of prison. Instead, she decided to hold her ground. "Isabella, I'm sorry I don't. I imagine it could be anyone who felt exploited or threatened by him." She managed to keep her voice steady enough, and the board members exchanged glances. Head of investigation, sighing. "We appreciate your candor, Ms. James. If you do learn anything, please inform us. We also want you to know that if Lucas Brown retaliates in any way or makes threats, the company will support your legal protection. It's the least we can do in light of what you endured." Isabella nodded, a storm of emotions swirling inside her. The meeting wrapped up with an air of finality. Lucas was gone, but the police investigation into the arson remained open. Despite the board's decision to remove Lucas, the corporate environment at Envision Consulting was far from settled. The financial downturn that had prompted the company to consider downsizing employees remained, and the scandal only compounded their woes. Clients were skittish, rethinking their contracts. This forced the company to accelerate layoffs. Isabella waited anxiously to see if her name would still appear on the final list. 2 weeks later, the dreaded email arrived in employees' inboxes, enumerating who would be let go, effective immediately. Isabella's heart thumped as she scanned the list and found her name. She was among several others, including some she considered friends. That same afternoon, she cleared out her desk. The feeling was surreal, as if the office had become an empty shell of its former self. Evelyn came over, tears in her eyes. Evelyn softly, "I'm so sorry, Bella. I wish I could change this. They're cutting so many of us." Isabella, forcing a small smile. "It's okay. Maybe it's for the best. I've been living in a nightmare." They hugged tightly, tears burning at the corners of their eyes. "Evelyn, are you going to be all right? Please promise you'll stay in touch. We'll figure something out." Isabella, voice trembling. "I will. I promise." As she took the elevator down for the last time, cardboard box in hand, she felt oddly light. Yes, she was now unemployed and had committed a serious crime that could come crashing down on her at any moment. Yet in that moment, she was freed from the suffocating tension of her job. She was free from Lucas and his vile manipulations. Stepping out into the city's warm breeze, Isabella felt at a crossroads. The media storm around the scandal had not yet died down, and there was a real possibility the police might intensify their search for the arsonist. She still had the option of fleeing, maybe moving to another city to start anew. But was running away truly the best course of action? A part of her contemplated speaking out publicly about her experience, perhaps even anonymously. She had the evidence of Lucas's misconduct, and she had enough personal connections at Envision to validate her story. She could become an advocate of sorts, shining a light on corruption in corporate environments, if she could handle the scrutiny. Another path was to keep her head down, attempt to salvage whatever finances she had, and rebuild her life quietly. Isabella, thinking to herself, what do I really want now? Justice or peace? Or is it possible to have both? She didn't know the answer yet, but she sensed that her life was about to take a turn that she never anticipated. The city still bustled, unaware of her personal turmoil. She walked down the street, taking in the sounds of street vendors calling out, buses rumbling by, people hurrying to their next destinations. She felt like a speck in a massive tapestry, yet her individual actions had caused a storm within her corner of that tapestry. Over the next few days, Isabella avoided social events and tried to find a sense of normalcy. She updated her resume, scanned job sites, and reached out to old colleagues outside Envision. Some offered words of sympathy. Others were busy fighting for their own positions in an unstable market. She found no immediate leads. Meanwhile, bits of news trickled in. The local authorities had no definitive suspect in the arson, but they were still investigating. Lucas was rumored to be preparing some sort of counter-allegation, possibly claiming that his dismissal had been based on false accusations. If he went public with his side of the story, the entire scandal might flare up again, perhaps drawing out the identity of the arsonist in the process. Evelyn urged Isabella to get in touch with a lawyer, just in case. Isabella resisted initially, fearful that consulting a lawyer would be tantamount to admitting guilt. However, her friend was persistent. "Evelyn, look, we both know you set that fire. If you ever end up in court, you need legal representation. Don't face it unprepared." "Isabella, you're right. I guess I was hoping it wouldn't come to that." With Evelyn's help, she discreetly found a reputable attorney in the city, someone known for handling sensitive cases. The initial consultation was nerve-wracking, but it gave Isabella a sense of clarity. The lawyer explained that if the authorities found credible evidence linking her to the crime, she might be able to negotiate a plea deal, especially given the circumstances of harassment and emotional distress. It wouldn't be a guaranteed free pass from punishment, but it might reduce the severity of any sentencing. Leaving the lawyer's office, Isabella felt a heavy weight on her chest. She had not imagined her life would come to this, a swirl of scandal, joblessness, and potential criminal charges. Yet she also felt a strange sense of resolve. She had survived the worst nightmares a woman could face in a corporate setting. She still had her life, her intelligence, and a chance, however slim, at redemption. As the days turned into weeks, the city's obsession with the scandal waned. New headlines took center stage, and the speculation about the arsonist quieted down. The police investigation seemed to have stalled without strong leads. Lucas Brown, now jobless and publicly disgraced, faded from the corporate scene. Rumor had it he was dealing with legal threats from multiple women who claimed harassment. Isabella spent her time reflecting on what she truly wanted out of life. She had compromised her morals, given in to an ugly system, and ended up burned in every sense. Yet she refused to let her story end in despair. She wanted to reclaim her dignity. Part of that involved acknowledging the harm she had caused. Burning a car was not a trivial act, no matter how righteous her anger. One morning, she gathered her courage and penned a letter. It was addressed to the Board of Envision Consulting and, indirectly, to Lucas Brown, wherever he might be. She wrote down her journey, her years of loyal service, the repeated betrayals, the personal toll. She did not explicitly confess to the arson, but made it clear that desperation can push even the kindest soul into a corner. She ended the letter by urging the company to strengthen its policies, to ensure no one else would endure what she had faced. She included a note that she was willing to cooperate in any deeper investigation if it meant reform. She didn't know if the letter would do any good, but writing it gave her a sense of release. It was the first time she felt like she was speaking honestly, without fear of consequences. She needed to be heard, if only in that small capacity. Several more weeks passed. Slowly, Isabella found freelance consulting gigs, leveraging her years of expertise. She worked for smaller clients, some local entrepreneurs, and made just enough to pay her bills. She was nowhere near the corporate stratosphere she once dreamed of, but she felt more at peace, free from the daily moral compromises. She still spoke regularly with Evelyn, who remained at Envision Consulting for now. The company was struggling to regain stability, and no one felt safe. Evelyn updated her on the letter Isabella had sent. Evelyn, on the phone. The board received your letter. They've issued a new code of conduct policy. They're also planning to launch mandatory harassment awareness training. It's not perfect, but it's a step. Isabella smiled faintly. Isabella, that's something at least. Maybe all of this wasn't in vain. She had begun to see a therapist, trying to process the guilt, anger, and trauma. Each session peeled back another layer of shame, helping her to forgive herself for the choices she had made under immense pressure. She started to see a possible future where she wasn't defined solely by the humiliations and the act of arson. That said, the fear never fully vanished. She knew the police file on the arson case remained open. Each time she saw a patrol car or heard sirens, her stomach knotted. Yet as time stretched on, the likelihood of her facing charges grew slimmer. She tried not to dwell on it, focusing instead on rebuilding her life day by day. The city continued to pulse with the hustle of countless lives, each chasing dreams under the bright African sun. Envision Consulting had changed leadership, implemented new policies, and tried to bury the scandal in distant memory. Lucas Brown's reputation lay in tatters. Rumors said he had moved to another country, hoping to start fresh. For Isabella James, nothing was quite the same. She had learned the hard way that ambition can become a destructive fire when stoked by desperation. Yet she had also learned that even amid the ashes, hope could rise. She had lost her job and almost lost herself, but in the end, she reclaimed her story. She was not merely a victim, nor just a perpetrator of a crime. She was a woman who, facing overwhelming odds, had made regrettable decisions and was striving to make amends. On a warm, clear morning, she decided to visit the site of Galton Tower one last time before fully closing that chapter of her life. Standing across the street, she gazed up at the lofty structure, Once a beacon of her aspirations, now a reminder of hard lessons. People hustled in and out, carrying briefcases, wearing determined expressions. She saw in them a reflection of her past self, hopeful, unaware of the price success sometimes demands. Isabella, thinking to herself, I won't let one man's manipulation or a broken system define my future. I can still build something worthwhile. Stepping away, she blended into the city's crowd, letting the swirl of daily life envelop her. She moved forward, not certain of every step, but resolved to walk a path truer to her conscience. If the echoes of her story ever reach someone else facing the same struggles, perhaps they would find courage in it. Courage to stand against exploitation, to value their dignity over a corrupted system's rewards. And if that spark of awareness prevented even one person from falling into the same trap, maybe the fire she started was not in vain after all.